The story kicks off comparing everything to a magical, dreamlike romance. Our female lead looks back on her past life, spent in a non-stop grind and hustle from childhood all the way to adulthood, where she was buried under academic pressure, constantly chasing top grades to get into college and secure her future. But after graduating, the pressure only ramped up as she chased certifications, built her resume, and worked part-time jobs just to dodge debt and land a decent gig. Even though she was utterly burned out, she couldn't afford to stop because of rent and everyday living costs, forcing her to keep grinding under an endless pile of burdens and responsibilities. Facing workplace pressure and harsh words blaming her whenever she showed weakness, she pushed herself way past her limits, until she finally collapsed and passed out from pure exhaustion, passing away and leaving her world behind to be reincarnated into another. But she quickly realizes this new world offers zero rest, and she's still forced to hustle like a puppet on strings. She's shocked by her new appearance and absurd reality, recognizing the classic novel trope where the main character is too busy falling in love, while all their work and dirty duties fall entirely on a poor side character, who inevitably drops dead from overwork, and that happens to be Hazel Love, the exact character she just possessed. She screams in frustration at the thought of dying from overwork all over again, and decides to reject this ridiculous fate by turning in her resignation on the spot. After escaping that doomed fate, Hazel looks forward to living a free, independent life of her own, only to realize her wallet is completely empty, and that making money is unavoidable if she wants to survive in this society. Even though she wonders if quitting the Imperial Knights was a mistake, she stands her ground, choosing to find a new job to save her own life. Remembering her past life's misery and pointless death, she vows to manage on her own and make it big, and gets back to work, but at a balanced pace this time so she doesn't die from exhaustion again. She takes on odd jobs and various combat gigs, slowly scraping together savings to make ends meet. And while grinding away washing dishes at a restaurant, she asks herself in frustration how long this can go on, feeling like her current reality isn't much different from her past life's nightmare. All she really wanted was to own a home without worrying about rent, enjoy warm meals, and build a simple family to live within peace and stability. But this humble dream was something she could only experience through illusion magic. She feels just like the little match girl clinging to temporary fantasies, realizing her illusion magic is just a lie that can't actually change reality, fading away just like a dying match flame. While serving customers, she wishes a massive fortune would just drop from the sky, knowing all the get-rich-quick shortcuts thanks to memorizing the story of this world. But she holds back, knowing those routes are reserved for the main characters, and messing with them could have disastrous consequences that might prevent the heroes from defeating the Demon King and saving the world, turning her into a hated villain in their eyes for stealing their resources, and ending with the world's destruction, which she strictly refuses since she wants to live a long life. She then realizes that using hidden info unknown to the protagonists requires heavy starting capital she doesn't have, leaving money as her main roadblock. She starts looking for a zero-capital idea that the main characters haven't touched, and overhears two guys at the pub whispering about a 3 million gold deal for something the size of a finger. Shocked by the insane amount, she hears one warning the other about getting killed if they get caught. But the other reassures him they're protected by an ultra-powerful villain nobody in the Empire dares to cross, someone who chases his enemies to the ends of the earth and executes them personally, guaranteeing his lackeys are untouchable. Hazel realizes this person is none other than the novel's arch-villain who tormented the heroes and nearly destroyed the world, a ruthless tyrant behind the most heinous crimes imaginable, known as Duke Kalis Haddad. An idea sparks: steal this villain's fortune to deal him a blow while helping out the main characters at the same time, killing two birds with one stone by securing the bag and clearing the hero's path. She approaches the two men with a bold plan, fully aware that if Duke Kalis catches her, he'll hunt her down relentlessly and wipe her completely out of existence without leaving a single trace. But confident in her plan to stay hidden, she walks up to their table pretending to be interested in their chat, flashing a charming smile and asking them to tell her more. Hazel casts her illusion magic on them without hesitation, reasoning it's fair game against bad guys, scrambling the henchmen's memories so the authorities end up issuing wanted posters with completely scrambled random sketches. Thanks to those distorted posters, Hazel manages to slip away safely from the villain's grasp. From that day on, Hazel's dream turns into a reality sweeter than any illusion. Using the villain's money to start a guild that steadily booms. Living a comfortable life where she clocks out early and enjoys her weekends as a guild master. Coming home, she's greeted by a handsome husband who lovingly cooks her favorite dishes, treating her with absolute warmth and tenderness, making Hazel believe she's finally reached the perfect fairy tale life beside her husband, Noah, leaving all her past struggles and exhausting hustle behind for good, joyfully dancing into a picture-perfect, happily ever after with the man she loves. But soon, a shady, chilling look flashes across her husband's face in the dark as he watches her. And her whole world flips upside down when she checks her marriage certificate and is stunned to see the name Kalis Haddad. Discovering her sweet husband Noah is actually the Empire's ultimate villain, the very man who put out hit posters on her. Flashback to a month after opening her mercenary guild in the city of Ferrarium. On a gorgeous spring day with yellow butterflies fluttering around, where she enjoyed her favorite breakfast and had a day packed with good luck omens. Landing her first client and recruiting an S-rank mercenary to seal her first successful deal. As she was getting ready to close up shop riding high on her lucky streak, a man stops her asking to submit an urgent request, revealing a stunningly handsome guy asking with a smile if he's too late. Hazel fell for Noah at first sight right then and there. And before long, he confessed his love with a bouquet of red roses, leaving her over the moon. 3 months later, he proposed with a massive diamond ring, making her feel her life had peaked in pure success, culminating in a beautiful wedding where they exchanged vows of eternal love, officially becoming husband and wife under the family name Eddies. Later on, Noah holds Hazel's hand, telling her all his worries and fears vanish the moment he touches her. Hazel echoes his feelings, saying being by his side wipes away all her anxieties. Hazel wonders what makes him so special, recalling how he tirelessly cooks the most delicious meals just for her. His care in draping his coat over her whenever it gets chilly so she won't catch a cold. Sticking by her side to fan her on hot days. And waking up the second she jolts awake from a nightmare. To hold her gently and calm her down until she drifts back to sleep safely. Hazel wishes this dreamlike happiness with him would never end. A full year passes and their first wedding anniversary approaches on a seemingly quiet day. Hazel receives the official paperwork confirming the deed transfer for a new property. Thrilled to wrap up the paperwork and planning to surprise her husband with a luxury villa once construction finishes. She hugs the papers happily, hoping Noah loves his anniversary gift. But Hazel freezes in terror when she looks over the documents and sees her husband's name registered as Kalis Haddad instead of Noah Eddies, the very villain hunting her down. She remembers Kalis's reputation as the novel's most brutal villain who mercilessly hunts down his enemies to execute them in person. Horrified by the reality that she's the one who stole his money, and that she might have been dancing in the palm of his hand the entire time. She tries to deny it, thinking there must be a typo in the official registry. Confident in the illusion magic she used, and rushes off to investigate for herself. Her assistant Veronica interrupts to report a spike in guild profits and remind her of her date with her husband, but Hazel quickly excuses herself, claiming she forgot something at home. Hazel races through the streets, torn between wanting to believe her husband and dreading the truth. She rushes home and begins tossing the room, refusing to doubt him or lose everything they built together. Meanwhile, Noah arrives in his carriage looking for Hazel, and Veronica lets him know she dashed home for an emergency. Hazel heads to Noah's desk and unlocks the hidden drawer that uses the same mechanism as hers, only to be horrified finding secret surveillance dossiers detailing her every move and her ideal partner type. She freezes in sheer terror as the clock ticks away, suddenly remembering her upcoming date with Noah. Hearing footsteps coming up the stairs, she frantically jams the files back into the drawer and locks it before getting caught. Noah opens the door, calling her name, and is surprised to see her standing right there. He pulls her into a hug, asking with genuine concern why she's trembling so much in the middle of summer. She panics, thinking he caught her snooping, but he casually asks if she caught a cold, gently placing his hand on her forehead and offering to cancel their date if she has a fever. She forces an awkward smile, denying she's sick and claiming he just startled her when he knocked. He reassures her gently, promising to knock softer next time, while she silently wonders if he truly didn't notice her panic. Noah hugs her again, deciding to make it up to her during their outing. Held in his arms, her confusion only deepens, struggling to reconcile her tender husband with the bloodthirsty villain Kalis. Sitting in the carriage during their outing, Noah asks if she's enjoying the trip he planned. She praises him with a tense smile, calling him the greatest husband while trying to calm her racing thoughts and stay rational. She replays the evidence from the secret drawer, trying hard to spin it in a positive light. She recalls the plot of the novel, I Will Prevent the Destruction and Get a Happy Ending, and the terrifying persona of Kalis Haddad. A man who brutally slaughtered anyone who annoyed him over and over. To the point where the entire world shivers at just the first syllable of his name. Remembering the sheer panic in the pub when people thought someone had merely uttered his name. She wonders how that same monster could gently feed her cream pastries when she's the one who stole his fortune. And how he could play the doting husband for a whole year instead of torturing and executing her. She recalls his tender care that morning, picking out her outfit and drying her hair with his own hands. Wondering if this is all an act designed to push her into total despair right before killing her. Noticing she's spaced out, Noah asks how the pastry tastes, and she flusteredly confirms it's delicious. He hands her the dessert basket with a warm smile, and she silently admits it really is mouthwatering. Her emotions wildly swing between being touched by his sweetness and terrified of who he might be. She offers to share and asks if he wants a bite. But Noah just wipes a bit of cream from her lips with his finger, saying just watching her eat makes him happy. Hazel's mind goes into overdrive, nearly losing her sanity from the sheer tension and stress. Walking beside him through the city streets with a scattered mind, she has no idea how to act around him. She brings up work, sharing Nika's report about the guild's sales jumping tenfold. And keeps babbling about expansion plans and hiring new staff just to dodge the awkward silence. She mentions wanting to boost client rewards and treat one of their top regular mercenaries to a meal. She notices Noah's expression harden and turn sour as she goes on praising that mercenary. He turns to her with a strained smile, asking if she plans to have that meal with him alone and clearly objecting to the idea. He steps closer, calling her darling, and firmly yet calmly tells her to find a better way to reward him. Hazel realizes he always hits her with darling whenever he's upset or bursting with jealousy. A chilling thought crosses her mind, could that jealousy be masking a deadly bloodlust? She immediately backs down, agreeing with him and suggesting a higher profit cut for the mercenary instead of a dinner invite. Noah smiles in satisfaction at the cancelled idea, while Hazel feels like all this stress is shaving years off her life. She spots a crowd anxiously gossiping about the surge in monster sightings across the northern and western regions. The locals brush it off, thinking the monsters won't reach their southern city, but Hazel takes it dead seriously. She knows the monster spike is a bad omen, signaling the Demon King's broken seal and the world's impending doom. But decides not to interfere, knowing stopping the catastrophe and securing the happy ending is strictly the hero's job. She scoffs at how the original protagonists lived their best lives after she literally died of overwork. And makes up her mind to focus on saving herself and surviving the villain standing right next to her. Desperately, she wonders how to handle an overpowered monster of a villain that even the main characters struggled to defeat. Remembering his insane immunity to poisons, black magic, and her own illusion magic. An unexpected idea strikes her to test his true identity. Realizing that if Noah is just an ordinary guy, he'll react to a light illusion, but if he's Kalis, he won't see a thing. She tells herself those files in his office might have been planted to drive a wedge between them. She compares Kalis's pale hair to Noah's glossy, night sky black locks. And Kalis's blood-red eyes to Noah's elegant ruby gaze, convincing herself they don't match. She resolves to execute her plan and cast illusion magic just once to confirm his identity for good. That night at the mansion, she prepares herself, feeling hesitant and guilty about using magic on the man she loves. Knowing illusion magic penetrates the mind and causes strain no matter how pretty the illusion is. Walking down the hall, she decides to cast it at the weakest output possible to avoid hurting his brain. She opens the door carefully to avoid any negative aftereffects, and Noah gives her a warm welcome sitting in his nightwear. So she begins weaving the illusion around him, praying silently that he sees it and proves he's just an ordinary guy. Hazel breaks down how illusion magic works, noting her go-to method is ocular induction. She mentions that prolonged use causes eye color changes as a side effect, but it boasts the highest success rate. making it the ultimate choice for such a critical moment. She releases a dazzling visual illusion that no ordinary person could ever miss. But to her shock, Noah shows zero reaction whatsoever. Noah casually asks why she isn't coming closer, completely stunning her with his total blindness to the illusion. She tries to rationalize it, assuming maybe he's just stunned or dazed. Or that the illusion was way too weak, so she refocuses. And ramps up her magic with everything she's got, begging inside for him to see the illusion right in front of him. Noah moves toward her while she watches nervously to see if he notices anything. Desperately hoping he's just a normal guy with zero ties to the villain Kalis. Noah steps up and embraces her gently, teasingly asking when she learned to make him crave her this much. Hazel's eyes widen in absolute horror as it hits her. He didn't see the magic at all. In his arms, with a trembling voice, she asks if he truly doesn't see anything around them. And Noah smiles tenderly, assuring her the only thing he sees clearly is his wife. The brutal truth crashes down on Hazel, confirming his absolute immunity to any kind of illusion magic. Definitively proving the man standing before her is not Noah Eddies. She pulls away abruptly, making up an urgent excuse that requires her to leave the room immediately. Hazel collapses outside against the door, finally certain that he's the real villain Kalis hatted. She admits she tried denying the earlier clues, but the result is indisputable. Realizing her husband is the very man coming to kill her, and that all his past love and care were nothing but a sham. Covering her face, she laughs in bitter despair at the cruel reality. She understands him being furious about his stolen fortune, but can't fathom why he went this far instead of just executing her on sight. She realizes how obsessed he is and that begging won't earn her an ounce of mercy, deciding she has to plan an escape. Refusing to survive overwork only to be brutally murdered, she knows escaping won't be easy since he knows every single detail about her. Plus, she needs cash to buy a fake identity and cover travel expenses. Terrified of running away broke and starving to death. Trying to pull herself together, she's interrupted by a knock on the door and Noah's voice asking if she's busy. From behind the door, he tells her he brought some food so she won't get hungry working late and left it outside. Telling her not to overwork herself before stepping away, which she confirms as he leaves. Opening the door, she finds a warm, freshly cooked dish he made just for her. She stares at the food in confusion, wondering if he's fattening her up before slaughtering her. Comparing him to the candy house witch feeding her caged victim. She digs in, wondering what kind of villain brings food this tenderly just to drive his victim into despair, admitting it tastes amazing and suits her palate perfectly. She confesses to herself that the real reason she hesitates to run is her genuine, deep love for Noah. Finding it brutal to simply throw away her life partner and cut ties so easily. Feeling an overwhelming sense of emptiness and loneliness, spending this night away from him for the very first time since their wedding. Watching the clock hit midnight, she decides to head back to the bedroom, assuming he's fast asleep. Only to find him wide awake, standing by the window waiting for her. Turning to her with a gentle smile to ask if she wrapped up her work. She flusteredly asks why he stayed up until near dawn. And he walks over, telling her he simply can't fall asleep without her. Noah rests his head on her shoulder like an affectionate puppy while she instinctively strokes his hair. Hazel snaps back to reality, warning herself not to be fooled and staying on guard against the man planning to end her life. Noah scoops her up and carries her to bed, suggesting they get some sleep after her long shift. She panics, asking if he means right now, recalling all those long nights he wore her out, leaving her drained the next day. He playfully whispers in her ear, asking what she's thinking and teasing that he had no intentions of doing anything tonight. She internally questions why a terrifying archvillain would crack such childish jokes, asking if he's being serious. He lies down next to her, trapping her in place, so she forces herself to stay cool and act normal to avoid blowing her cover. Holding her hands, he asks with a grin what she'd do if he wasn't telling the truth. Hazel gets flustered by the whole situation, still reeling from his true identity. Wondering how on earth she's supposed to handle this kind of vibe. Noah catches her tension and touches her cheek, showing he's ready to back off so his wife won't feel uncomfortable. Hazel thinks spending the night with him like usual will let the bitterness swallow up all the sweetness they shared. But seeing his affectionate gaze, she thinks a little bitterness might actually do her good. She shakes the thought off, insisting she has to step back and say no. She calls out his name softly and he gently holds her hand, asking what she wants him to do. She knows she could stop him and protect her feelings, but her heart refuses to obey her head. She likens a year's worth of built-up emotions to the deep abyss of the sea, nearly impossible to escape all at once, even knowing she'll eventually drown and suffocate in the end. Noah leans in to kiss her, so she decides to pour out every last drop of emotion inside her, believing that purging the last bit of attachment will let betrayal and fear overpower her love, allowing her to feel relieved and pull off a clean escape, far away from her husband Noah, or rather Kalis Hadid, the man who wants her dead. Morning comes with Noah cheerfully busy in the kitchen whipping up breakfast. Hazel wakes up exhausted and calls him a liar, so he smiles, kisses her, and playfully admits he's the biggest liar in the world. She tells him she'll never forgive him, so he calmly suggests saving her anger until after breakfast, which she agrees to since she needs the energy. While eating, Hazel cements her decision to plan a smooth, clean divorce, resolving not to be fooled by him anymore and thanking him for the meal. They eat together while Noah gazes at her with total love and adoration. Hazel heads out to the guild, heartbroken that she has to abandon everything she built and run. Touching the guild's entrance, she remembers how special this place is to her after leaving the Knights to avoid dying of overwork, back when she was broke and desperate, having stolen Kalis's money to start this very business. She started with just a single-room office, acting as its sole mercenary, steadily gathering members and grinding hard until she turned it into a grand 2-story building. The guild members greet her with a warm welcome and she smiles back cheerfully, bitter that she has no other way out. She decides to hand over the guild to Kalis as payback for the stolen money and thanks for the happiness he gave her, hoping he'll spare her life and let her go. She resolves to liquidate whatever cash she can and prep the divorce, right before the door violently swings open and a panicked Veronica bursts in, screaming in terror that a massive, terrifying monster has appeared at the city's western gate. Hazel is shocked by the sudden news of a rampaging monster wrecking everything in its path and closing in fast. She instantly realizes the danger, as Ferrarium was known for being completely safe, leaving it with zero defenses or prep against monster raids. Chaos and panic sweep through the town as rumors spread about monsters invading their safe haven. She finds this shift bizarre, recalling that in the original novel this city remained safe until the very end, and decides to look into it later. Her assistant Veronica urges her to run for her life, but Hazel firmly draws her sword, determined to face it herself. She orders Nika to quickly gather any available mercenaries while she stalls the beast, despite Nika warning her that Noah will be worried sick. She replies with a confident smile, telling her to hurry back with backup if she's that concerned, and dashes off alone straight into danger to face the threat head-on. A horrifying, gigantic monster appears, wreaking havoc and spreading terror throughout the town. Watching the beast, she notices with disgust its glowing red eyes that uncomfortably remind her of Noah's. She breathes a small sigh of relief seeing no purple gem on its forehead, meaning it's not top-tier danger. She ambushes the monster, drawing its aggro with a swift move to wrap up the fight before casualties mount. The monster roars menacingly, annoying her with its deafening shriek as she gears up to use her technique. She unleashes an area of effect illusion spell to lure the beast right into her trap. She explains that this magic tricks the target's brain into perceiving phantom thorns as absolute reality. The illusions lock the monster down, causing it to blade under the crushing phantom bind. She leaps in, delivering a decisive sword slash to finish off the trapped monster. Nika arrives with the mercenary squad just in time to witness Hazel standing alone in the decisive clash. The beast crashes down defeated in a bright flash, and she breathes a sigh of relief with the battle won. The crowd erupts in cheers, marveling at her courage and insane skill in soloing the monster like a true Imperial knight. She feels awkward from all the heavy praise, thinking it's totally over the top. She recalls her past as an average knight who was told her skills were completely ordinary and nothing special. She brushes it off, telling herself she's just an overworked side character from before, and the locals are only amazed because monsters rarely show up here. Noah approaches with a calm, eerie smile, asking about the rumors he just heard. He scolds her with a sarcastic edge for tackling the monster solo without relying on her crew, while she senses his simmering rage. He calls her move reckless and she awkwardly tries to explain herself. He reminds her of her strict promise never to put herself in danger, asking who even came up with that idea in the first place. She remembers the promise all too well, flashing back to when she spotted suspicious bloodstains on Noah's sleeve. Noah had hidden his hand, brushing it off as nothing, but she caught him off guard asking if he got into a fight or ran into a monster. He assured her the area was peaceful and safe, but she kept pressing about where that blood really came from. He played it off as spilled sauce while cooking, so she pretended to be relieved and bought his story. She asked that they make a pinky promise never to get involved in dangerous stuff again. He swore with a sweet smile, all while hiding his actual blood-stained hand behind his back. She realizes she made that promise back when she was totally blind to his identity as Kalis, now certain that stain was definitely not sauce. Noah keeps lecturing her, playing the part of the devoted, worried husband, while she wonders why he bothers if he's planning to kill her anyway. She pictures Kalis's sinister persona, probably insisting she die exclusively by his own hands. She decides to play along and act totally obedient to hide her escape plan, begging him to forgive her just this once. She playfully pouts and asks for forgiveness, and he replies that he can't just carry her on his back 24/7 out of sheer worry. He shoots her a sharp look, making sure she keeps that promise from now on. Getting into the carriage, she feels just how impossible it is to survive and live through this suffocating tension. In a dimly lit room, he sits in his true identity as his subordinate confirms all the preparations are set. He asks about tomorrow's departure and the subordinate confirms it, assuring him Hazel hasn't suspected a thing. He strictly orders that not a single mistake be made in the plan. His subordinate reassures him that everything has been meticulously prepared for a long time. He decides not to let his guard down, staying sharp until the end to ensure the plan succeeds. Late that night, he slips back into the bedroom where Hazel is sound asleep. He slides in beside her while she's trapped in a dark, terrifying nightmare. She wakes up gasping in sheer terror from a nightmare where Noah is strangling her. She's shocked to see him wide awake next to her in the dark, asking why she woke up. He pulls her in close, asking gently if she had another bad dream. She scolds him for coming home so late, so he apologizes, kisses her forehead, and tells her to go back to sleep. He reminds her of their morning outing, making her panic and ask if they can reschedule. She fakes extreme exhaustion from work and a need to rest, so he pauses, quietly considering her request. She finds his hesitation weird since he usually says yes instantly, fueling her suspicions even more. She's gripped with dread, convinced tomorrow is the day he plans to execute her. She pictures her grim fate right before their first anniversary, believing her torment is just entertainment for Kalis. She's convinced taking his revenge will finally free him from playing the loving husband, making it the perfect day to get rid of her. She pulls the fake cough and sickness card to dodge the trip at all costs. He shows concern, suggesting she rest today and push the picnic to tomorrow instead. Remembering the weekend is 2 whole days, she reluctantly agrees, racking her brain for what excuse to invent tomorrow. Heavy rain pours down, stopping all carriages, and her heart rejoices thinking the heavens are on her side. He takes it in stride, noting they have plenty of days ahead to go. She curses his bizarre obsession with chasing her, wishing he'd just sue her or let her go instead of this psychological torture. She sips the pine nut soup he made specifically tailored to her taste, wondering just how sinister his grand scheme really is. Curiosity creeps in about the secret spot he was waiting all weekend to take her to. He takes her hand and kisses it warmly, saying the location is a surprise she has to see for herself. He explains it's somewhere she's never visited before, which she darkly interprets as him sending her straight to heaven. Relieved to survive the weekend, she still worries he'll figure out a weatherproof way to kill her next time. She resolves to file for divorce and look for a hideout or a trustworthy ally to help her escape. He catches her off guard, pointing out how spaced out she's been lately and how she avoids looking at him. Leaning in close, he pouts that she doesn't think about him as much as he thinks about her, which she flusteredly denies. He embraces her, asking her to keep her eyes and thoughts solely on him whenever they're together. Gripping her hand tightly, she feels his sweet words carry a deadly warning against even thinking of running away. Later in his room, he sits reflecting on her suspicious behavior and sudden jumpiness over the past few days. He recalls how her bright gaze, once reserved solely for him, has turned distant and shaky. He wonders if something unusual happened, even though his subordinates' reports showed nothing out of the ordinary. He briefly suspects another man, but instantly brushes it off since he already eliminated every possible pest in his way. Suddenly, he remembers their upcoming wedding anniversary. He recalls how she always loves celebrating every occasion and planning sweet surprises and gifts for him. Opening his desk drawer, he gazes at the gift with a subtle smile, deciding to play dumb and keep acting the part of the perfect husband. The scene opens with him looking over a special dossier detailing Hazel Love's ideal dream guy to make sure nothing goes off track. His assistant hands Duke Kalis a detailed report on Hazel's movements, going over her basic info like her name and her age of 23. The Duke stares at her photo, noting her pale features and big golden eyes that make her look like a tiny herbivore or a bunny running across a snowy field. He corrects himself, comparing her to a shy deer instead, before his assistant snaps him back to focus on the rest of the report. Kalis notes that she has no family and lives in the capital, making getting rid of her a total breeze. But the assistant points out things get tricky. She joined the Imperial Knights straight away as the top graduate. On top of that, she logged over 100 successful suppression ops and never failed once using illusion magic. The Duke finally realizes why every single subordinate he sent came back completely out of their minds, babbling nonsense. He wonders why on earth she chose to run a mercenary guild and flex her illusion magic after stealing his money, practically painting a target on her back as if begging for death. The assistant explains that she was sidelined for being a commoner, so she doesn't even see her own feats as anything special. Kalis decides to exploit her craving for attention and make her easily fall head over heels for him with minimal effort. He asks for a full breakdown of her ideal dream guy so he can approach her in person. All to trap her and handle her personally. And just like that, he started putting in double the effort to fool her and get close in the city. He checks her preference sheet to see what physical traits she's into. He reads that she likes a tall, handsome guy with shoulders as broad as the Pacific Ocean, utterly confused by what that even means. He figures he doesn't need to change his looks, just throw on some brighter clothes. He shows up looking radiant in front of Hazel asking about his look, leaving her completely stunned by his insane visuals. The assistant continues with the list, noting she loves a guy who can cook and sets aside weekly date time, something quite out of character for him. The Duke brushes off any doubts, scoffing at the idea that acting sweet and gentle could be hard. When his assistant asks if he's ever even cooked before, he confidently fires back that he can do anything. He insists he only needs to try it once or twice, and sure enough, he starts cooking like a total pro. Hazel happily munches on his food, constantly praising how delicious it is. The assistant keeps reading the specs, which require him to be sweet and polite by day, wild and a bit obsessive by night, leaving Kalis baffled by the contradiction. The Duke points out he went all out to meet every single preference himself after all his lackeys failed against her magic. He silently wonders how this clever woman managed to dig up and steal his classified intel in the first place, and resolves to uncover just how many of his secrets she knows, no matter what it takes. A whole year passes with Hazel firmly under his control and in the palm of his hand. Even though he still doesn't know how his intel leaked, he feels at ease knowing she's completely in love with him and unable to run. Still, he realizes letting this drag on for a full year is an issue, because while he enjoyed it, he never expected it to last this long. He privately admits she looks adorable like a little bunny with her fair complexion, but refuses to get carried away. He decides to wrap this up and get rid of her soon, suddenly remembering he still needs to bake her pumpkin pie. Knowing she loves food despite having a small appetite, and that pumpkin pie is the one exception where she eats 2 whole slices. He sets to work baking the pie extra crispy with plenty of whipped cream so it cools overnight, ready for her by morning. Slyly reassuring himself that all this pampering is just part of his mastermind plan. Meanwhile, Hazel realizes she desperately needs an ally to pull off her escape, so she starts penning a letter to Dylan Banker. She tries to finish the letter quickly while Kalis is away, even though she feels awkward reaching out of nowhere after so long. The only person she truly trusts is her former colleague, Dylan Banker, despite how little time they spent together. Since he was a squad mate of the original Hazel before she possessed this body and resigned from the Knights. She remembers his super outgoing personality that made him so easy to get close to. He was like everyone's dependable big bro, always ready to lend a helping hand. Thanks to that, she felt a great vibe with him during their brief time together. She hasn't forgotten how genuinely he stepped in to help when her resignation paperwork hit a snag. She fondly recalls the fun times when he'd ask for her help on the job, feeling a bit nostalgic for him. In her letter, she asks him to send a trustworthy fixer to help her out in secret, offering to pay full commission for the job. She wraps up the letter asking how he's doing, signs her name, and seals the envelope. Knowing regular mail would blow her cover to Kalis immediately, she resorts to her special magic technique by crafting a dedicated mana messenger bird. Since it's completely safe from interception and leaves zero traces behind, she launches the magic bird carrying the letter into the sky. The bird reaches Dylan mid-training, catching his attention. Dylan is stoked to finally hear back from Hazel. The magic bird returns with Dylan's reply, teasing Hazel and jokingly calling her heartless for ghosting him for so long. He agrees to help for old time's sake, making Hazel smile, thinking he hasn't changed a bit. He explains he's slammed and can't come in person, but promises to send over a top-tier fixer and assistant real soon. He mentions pulling crazy overtime due to monster attacks on the outskirts of the capital, shocking Hazel at how fast the original plot is advancing. She remembers her guild members' investigation into the recent beast that attacked their town, which revealed that the monsters are desperately searching for something, giving her an ominous feeling that trouble is brewing. She brushes off the worry, reminding herself the heroes will handle it, and her only job is surviving Kalis. Dylan ends his letter promising to see her before autumn, and Hazel burns the letter to destroy any evidence. Veronica interrupts to let her know a new applicant has arrived for a job interview. Hazel tenses up, remembering that most guild members, including Veronica, were handpicked by Noah himself. While she used to admire their elite skills, she now feels like every single one of them is keeping tabs on her. She decides to play it cool and interview the applicant to avoid making Kalis suspicious, asking for the resume. But the second Hazel lays eyes on the applicant, she is utterly stunned. The applicant introduces herself with a bright smile as Ginger Berean, radiating excitement for the job. Hazel is floored by this exact character showing up at her guild. She recalls that Ginger fits the classic trope of a villain's lackey who later flips to the side of justice, carrying a tragic backstory. And those types of characters always meet a guaranteed tragic death in these novels. And the Ginger standing right before her is that very doomed character. Which means right now she's working for the villain Kalis, and was supposed to be stationed at the capital's Colosseum. Hazel wonders if the timeline shifted because Kalis has been staying by her side, while Ginger shows off her diverse skills in swordsmanship, herbalism, and general admin. Recognizing her incredible utility as a key supporting character, Hazel decides to turn this into a golden opportunity to recruit a powerhouse trump card. Knowing Ginger will eventually betray Kalis later on, Hazel plans to make her an ally and hires her on the spot, determined to save her from her doomed fate. Ginger beams with joy, expressing full readiness to follow any orders given. Hazel tasks Veronica with training her, determined to make use of her in secret, away from prying eyes. Later that night in the bedroom, Kalis walks in surprise to see paperwork spread across the bed, so Hazel tells him her workload will lighten up once the newbie is trained. Kalis is pleased to hear that, stepping up affectionately to give her shoulders a gentle massage. Hazel reminds herself not to get hooked on this fake sweetness. But she gives in for now since escaping is currently out of the question, letting him have his way. Noah gently massages Hazel's feet in bed, so she asks him to stop feeling flustered, but he smiles and insists he's her husband and there's no need to be shy. She shivers at how terrifyingly meticulous this villain is, giving his target a foot massage right before executing her. He catches her staring and softly tells her that her gaze is awfully sharp and intense. She awkwardly pulls her foot back, denying it and claiming she was just calmly looking at him, so he playfully calls her a liar. He closes his eyes with a satisfied grin, saying it makes him happy that she wants him, while she sits there utterly conflicted. She realizes how tough it is to shake off his constant surveillance given his relentless persistence. She decides to distract him by bringing up her plan to expand the guild's business, which catches him off guard. She explains that requests in Ferrarium are limited, and opening branches in other regions with the new hire makes for perfect timing. He leans back lazily, admitting that expanding into other regions is quite an unexpected move. She plays dumb and asks for his help, inwardly confident he won't be able to say no after putting on the devoted husband act. He worries it might wear her out when she's already so busy, but she playfully pouts and tells him she's counting on him. He kisses her knee and agrees to take charge of the prep and research if that's what she wants. She beams and thanks him, secretly plotting to use his busy schedule to finalize her escape plan. She gleefully pictures the villain caught off guard, tasting the exact same shock, betrayal, and despair she went through. He leans in close again, assuring her he'll clear his schedule completely for this task. He suddenly pins her on the bed, asking for some alone time together, making her kick herself for letting her guard down. The day of their first and last wedding anniversary arrives and she wakes up gazing at the bed. She resolves to get up, hand over her gift, and end everything with zero regrets left behind. She prefers wrapping up everything she planned with a clean, beautiful closure, so she won't cry in bitter regret throughout her long future life. He walks into the room, and when she asks if he finished his urgent work, he confirms everything is done. She remembers seeing him rush off at dawn, wondering if he was busy preparing the details of her execution. He fastens a stunning necklace around her neck, admiring how perfectly it matches the color of her eyes. She remembers spotting that necklace at the market and passing on it to avoid lavish spending rumors, while he casually scoffed at the price tag back then. And when she asked him what he said, he just played it off like nothing. She realizes he went out of his way to buy it just because she made a passing compliment about it. He wraps his arms around her and kisses her, thanking her for marrying him and confessing his love. His flawless love confession stings with bitterness, thinking it would have been so much easier to accept if he were just cold to her. She replies that marrying him was the best thing that ever happened to her, but hesitates to finish her sentence. He notices her hesitation, so she warns herself not to let any cracks show in her composure. She finishes with a forced smile, calling herself lucky, while he looks back with an unreadable gaze. She asks why he's staring, and he caresses her cheek, saying it's because she's just so lovely. He pulls her in again, declaring he's the luckiest man alive. Clinging to his clothes, she notices his voice sounds completely different from usual. She feels his tone has shifted to sound like careless, calm, deep, and heavy, like someone setting an inescapable trap. A primal fear kicks in, making her pull back and urgently suggests they go check out the surprise she prepared for him. He smiles, saying they'll do whatever she wants and following her lead every step of the way. They hop into the carriage toward their countryside destination after she blindfolds Noah to keep the surprise hidden. She double-checks if he can see anything, and he confirms it's total pitch black. They arrive at a breathtaking scenic spot right by a flowing brook, walking hand in hand. She takes off the blindfold and tells him to open his eyes. He looks out at a gorgeous, elegant two-story country villa surrounded by flowers, as she reveals she built it just for him. She explains she knows he struggles with headaches and hates noisy places, adding that she wanted to give him a peaceful haven to relax, especially after he constantly tailored his entire lifestyle just to match hers. She notes that their seamless compatibility after living in totally different worlds for 20 years took immense effort, making it feel like true love. She points out that this gratitude is what drove her to prepare this gift, never expecting the deed transfer would expose his true identity. He tenderly cups her face and she smiles back, saying she wanted to give something back in return. He admits he's completely blown away, so she asks if he likes the gift. He hugs her tightly in the garden, telling her he absolutely loves the place. They step inside and take a tour, with him admiring the cozy fireplace that'll keep them warm in winter. When she asks what he thinks of the kitchen, he grins and says he's ready to whip up a gourmet feast for her right now. She chuckles at his excitement and leads him up to the second floor, designed to be the ultimate relaxing spot. She shows him the bedroom, fitted with soundproof mana stones to guarantee a peaceful sleep, assuring him this place is meant for pure rest away from all work stress. She tells him he can come here alone whenever he gets annoyed with her. He wraps his arms around her from behind, insisting he always wants to be with her and could never get mad at her. He says just her thoughtful care is enough to make him happy and suggests spending every single weekend in this house, taking her by surprise. He mischievously whispers in her ear, suggesting they just stay in this room starting right now. She quickly dodges and urges him to head down to the brook to see the rabbits and deer. He chuckles playfully, saying he loves animals that look just like her. They walk barefoot down by the water as she takes him on a full tour around the property. Seeing how genuinely thrilled he is with the gift and his suggestion to celebrate their anniversary here she smiles and agrees to the promise, even though she knows deep down it'll never happen. Returning to the guild, she sees off her assistant Veronica, who leaves on a negotiation trip to set up the new branch locations. Taking advantage of her absence, she approaches Ginger and calls for a private meeting in her office. Ginger eagerly agrees, grabbing her papers to follow right behind. They sit in the office sipping tea as Ginger gushes about how happy she is working here and how nice everyone is. Hazel lets her know she has a special assignment for her with one quick question first. Ginger perks up, ready to answer anything with enthusiasm. Hazel's expression drops, sharply and directly asking her how much Kalis had paid her for this gig. Ginger gasps in utter shock, thinking she must have missed her. She firmly presses her on how long she's worked under him, but Ginger plays dumb with childlike innocence, asking who that even is. Ginger even offers to look into him and investigate if needed, but Hazel shuts her down with a piercing glare. Hazel strikes with a lightning-fast move, ripping the spirit stone necklace meant to ward off illusion magic right off her neck. She crushes the pendant, coldly asking if nobody told her these cheap tricks don't work against her. Terrified, Ginger collapses to the floor, bursting into tears from sheer shock. She sobs hysterically, mourning the broken necklace and crying that it's the only keepsake left from her late parents. She wails on, apologizing to her parents for failing to protect their legacy. Hazel calmly places a hand on her shoulder, telling her she already knows her parents are alive and kicking, and tells her to cut the drama. She exposes her past. Her parents ran scams under her name, ditched her in massive debt, and ran off only to pop back periodically to visit her. She finishes by pointing out the pendant was crafted literally this year at a ridiculously high price, mockingly asking what family heirloom she's talking about, leaving Ginger utterly speechless. Ginger explodes in pure fury and deep resentment toward Hazel. Hazel reveals she knows all about her hefty monthly salary of $500,000 gold, explaining that she used her knowledge of the original plot to dig up her past. With a firm smile, she tells her to mind her manners and address her as ma'am. Inwardly, Hazel realizes that Kalis's insane wealth and generosity is the real reason his subordinates stay loyal despite his monstrous reputation. She offers to double her salary, dropping 2 gold bars worth 2 million gold right in front of her as a down payment. Stunned by the offer, Ginger nervously asks if she's really telling her to betray her master. She stresses that if she gets caught, it's a guaranteed death sentence at Kalis's hands. Hazel reassures her she'll only end up dead if she gets caught, trusting her caution and skills to keep it undercover. She strikes right at her weak spot, pointing out that her current pay will never be enough to buy her lover's freedom. Turns out Ginger's real drive to stack cash isn't her parents' debt, but saving her lover who's trapped as a gladiator slave. She warns her that the buyout price for her lover keeps climbing, promising to set her up with a new identity and full protection once the job is done. She gives her an ultimatum, threatening to wipe her memories clean with illusion arts if she turns down the deal. Ginger gives in to reality, accepting the deal and asking what she needs to do. Hazel explains that all she has to do is fool a single person for a very brief time. Back at Kalis's mansion, he sits gazing at a key, reminiscing about his trip with Hazel. He considers playing along and getting her a gift despite the slight detour in his plan. He smiles at how similarly they think, right before his subordinate interrupts to enter the room. He recalls every detail of the villa she spent months preparing, from the flowers to the windows. He hesitates to get rid of her immediately out of respect for her devotion and effort, just as his subordinate preps his report. Feeling Hazel is completely in his grip, he thinks taking her out right now would just make things boring. He gets irritated by the fact that she's constantly on his mind 24/7. Wondering if he's actually catching feelings, he quickly convinces himself he just wants to wrap things up on his own terms. The subordinate urgently calls out to his master with breaking news. He snaps around, visibly annoyed at having his train of thought interrupted. The subordinate reports they failed the mission to secure the divine purification stone from the temple. He flares up in rage despite being ready to pay any price, so the subordinate clarifies the stone is already claimed by someone else. He orders the owner eliminated without a second thought, nursing a pounding headache and deciding to have dinner with Hazel tonight. He remembers how happy she looked eating street food at a humble stall and considers taking her there. Thinking it wouldn't hurt to try street food just once for her sake, despite his hatred for mystery ingredients. The subordinate is baffled by his master's sudden mood swings, hesitating to break the news that the stone's owner is the crown prince's lover. Warning him about the catastrophic fallout of assassinating the crown prince's fiancée. He scoffs at it since she isn't officially crowned yet, but the subordinate brings up another major complication. He cautiously reveals that the owner of the stone is actually a close friend of that person, explaining that the owner is a friend of the captives, confirming the owner is a close friend of Kalis's wife from her imperial night days. He decides to back off for now to avoid friction, especially with the crown prince keeping an eye on their covert operations. The subordinate is shocked by his master's sudden hesitation and new concern over the crown prince's watchful eye. He orders them to track down another divine purification stone as his cursed headache flares up worse. Turns out Kalis has been suffering for over 10 years from a mysterious chronic headache that triggers violent, bloodthirsty impulses. This headache completely stripped him of his emotional control, drowning him in dark urges he couldn't suppress. He hated losing control over himself. As someone who despises submission and lives to dominate. Every doctor and remedy over the years failed to find the cause or put a stop to it. A few years back, he got his hands on a divine purification stone from a noble paying off a debt. That stone completely cured his chronic headaches for a good while. Yet his dark impulses still lingered deep down, never truly vanishing. One night, he lost his sanity and shattered the divine stone without remembering a single detail of what went down. The trigger for his rampage and how the stone broke remained a complete mystery to everyone. Regular purification stones did nothing for him, leaving him in desperate need of a rare divine-grade stone. Having Hazel around became a glimmer of hope, as his headaches started easing and vanishing near her, almost replacing the stone entirely. But her effect was temporary and faded when she was away, and since he planned to eliminate her eventually, finding a backup stone was an absolute must. Things get messy since the only known divine stone is tied to the crown prince's fiancée. The subordinate reports they successfully captured the last traitor lackey who tried to make a run for it. He asks what to do with the traitor, but Kalis notices Hazel's shift is about to end. The subordinate nervously asks again if they should execute the traitor. He orders the carriage readied first, leaving the entire traitor situation in his subordinate's hands. The subordinate is stunned, since his master always executes traitors personally and never delegates it to anyone. He complies with the order and immediately heads out to prep the carriage for him. Outside, he sits gripping Hazel's hands firmly, while she inwardly wonders why he's holding them so intensely. Panic strikes her heart, thinking he's memorizing her fingerprints to stop her from escaping. She resolves to update her fingerprint records at the bank before fleeing, only for their private moment to be interrupted by the subordinate arriving with an update. He glares at his subordinate with pure fury for ruining that intimate moment with her. Putting on a fake smile, he softly tells her his subordinate has just returned from his day assignment. He steps away with his subordinate while Hazel remembers his name is Sid, and that he serves as his right-hand man. She sneaks behind the wall to eavesdrop, terrified the report might be about something deadly. She overhears Sid's voice talking about a rain-induced cave-in and how repairs will take days. In a wild misunderstanding, she imagines they're talking about fixing up the pit they plan to bury her alive in. Hearing him order it postponed for now, she deduces he's put her execution on hold. She rejoices, thinking her gift managed to soften his heart and delay her death. She breathes a sigh of relief, knowing the delay buys her enough time to craft a foolproof escape plan without rushing. Regaining her confidence, she gears up to map out her getaway with total calm and precision. In reality, Sid was just updating him on road paving and building a reinforced fence that would wrap up in 2 weeks. He expresses full satisfaction, treating this project as a late wedding anniversary gift. He reflects on the immense effort and planning poured into this secret project. Turns out his real plan was expanding his wife's guild and moving her into a massive 5-story building. Even with his subordinate questioning the point of such luxury for a relationship ending soon, he did it out of sheer personal desire. It annoyed him to no end seeing Hazel hustle and grind in a cramped 2-story guild office after taking his money. Even if he was going to dispose of her eventually, he refused to let anything annoy him or undermine her status until then. He smirks wickedly, thinking that the higher he builds her happiness and hope, the more devastating her final fall and despair will be. Kayla stands firm on his strict decision to turn a 5-story building into a warehouse if necessary, completely unbothered by any financial loss. Meanwhile, Hazel spent the entire weekend bedridden battling a nasty sickness, right as sudden torrential rains poured down. The downpour caused a section of the entrance road to collapse, forcing emergency repairs that stalled and delayed his plan. He took advantage of the delay to build a double fence, making the property even safer and fortified. Thinking back to that sudden monster raid that nearly put her in danger makes his blood boil all over again. He strictly reminds himself that he's the only one allowed to lay a hand on her, and won't let any monster or anyone else touch her. When his assistant reminds him their anniversary date has passed, he confidently figures she'll take it in stride with her usual smile, ordering the works to continue smoothly. The assistant complies immediately, promising to execute the job to perfection. He buys some time to search the empire for the holy purification stone, fully intending to keep up his charade with her. At night, he watches her fake sleeping just to dodge interacting with him, wishing he could hear more of her sweet voice that reminds him of a lark singing. She desperately tries to sell the sleeping act, terrified of blowing her cover. He sees right through her trick in an instant, knowing for sure she's just faking it. He chuckles knowing she pulls this stunt whenever she's scared he'll keep her up all night, wondering when she'll realize how terrible her acting is. Finding it adorable, he decides to scoop her up and let her sleep peacefully for the night. As he carries her, he notices an unusual glimmer shining from her hair that catches his curiosity. He wonders about her glowing hair, jokingly asking himself how it shines when she isn't some bioluminescent monster. As she drifts into actual deep sleep, he figures she's worn out from her recent grind trying to expand her business. He inwardly questions what her ultimate goal is, busting her tail working so hard for such chump change. He finds himself wanting to keep watching her up close for hours that night. Deep down, he admits he just wants to memorize her features and stare at her, making up any excuse to do so. By day, she stands in the city streets waiting for an important guest to arrive. Annie shows up with a warm greeting, kicking off their long-awaited meeting. She recalls that Annie is the trusted fixer sent by Dylan, renowned for getting jobs done without ever betraying clients. Realizing how crazy expensive her rates are, she thanks her lucky stars for saving up enough cash from the guild. Annie is stunned by the sheer scale of the headquarters, amazed at the massive mercenary guild she runs. She explains the guild has been running for over a year, asking how Dylan's been doing. Annie mentions that Dylan has been crazy busy recruiting new subordinates on a massive scale. Stepping into a soundproof room, she asks to drop the friendly banter and get straight down to business. Annie gets serious, asking what kind of gig and assignment she needs this time. She states she needs to check something critical first before getting into the core details. She pulls out her necklace and asks her to quickly inspect it for any tracking magic. Annie takes a specialized magic tool from her bag to examine the pendant. Finishing the scan, Annie confirms in utter surprise that the necklace is completely clean of any tracking spells. But Annie discovers a whole different kind of magic cast on it. Annie explains the necklace is imbued with master-tier protection magic, explaining that the spell is designed to automatically trigger a defensive barrier to shield her in emergencies. Annie notes the enchantment is permanent, not just a one-time use, proven by the continuous flow of mana inside it. Annie asks where she got such a priceless artifact, and she replies it was an anniversary gift from her husband. She deduces her husband avoided tracking spells so he wouldn't raise suspicion, seeing him as insanely calculating and cunning. Annie marvels at the crazy value and rarity of the necklace, guessing her husband must love her to death. She drops a bomb on Annie, confessing the whole reason she hired her revolves around that very husband. Annie is struck with sheer horror and panic upon finding out her husband is the terrifying Duke Kalis-Hatted. Terrified, Annie asks why she married such a monster, to which she replies she never would have agreed if she knew who he was beforehand. Explaining that divorce and running away are unavoidable if she wants to survive, she officially requests Annie's help to pull it off. Annie hesitates, fearing for her own life, and asks what she'll do if she refuses, so Hazel confirms she'll just go it alone since there's no other choice. Reassuring her with no pressure, she promises a massive payout if she agrees, adding that she'll throw in some insanely profitable insider investment tips on top of her regular fee. Annie is skeptical, thinking investment pitches like that usually sound like scams, so Hazel tells her to hear her out first before judging. She reveals that purification stone prices are about to skyrocket like crazy, advising her to start stockpiling as many as possible right now. Annie doubts the move since those stones are sold as dirt-cheap temple souvenirs with virtually no real use. Hazel acknowledges the stone's effects are currently weak and obscure, making them cheap junk on the market. But she recalls the original plot where monster spawns will surge to set the stage for the hero. Pollution will spread everywhere until clean drinking water becomes scarce, turning purification stones into an absolute survival necessity. Demand will skyrocket to the point money won't even buy them, knowing nobody would believe this future spoiler if she said it outright. She pitches a realistic argument to Annie, citing the spike in monster extermination requests at her guild and rising public panic. Annie gets the angle, realizing demand will surge because people will treat them as protective wards. Annie confirms the intel aligns with her own network reports of growing unrest, smelling a golden opportunity to make bank. Annie pictures kicking off a whole new life thanks to the massive projected profits from this deal. Annie asks where she plans to run, and Hazel expresses doubt given Kalis's massive reach and extensive network. Annie suggests seeking refuge in another country as the optimal solution, warning that they must pick somewhere completely out of Kalis's reach, given his relentless, terrifying tracking. She eagerly asks if this suggestion means she's officially taking the job and helping out. Annie confirms she's in, motivated by making a fortune, adding that she already holds a grudge against Kalis after an old feud with one of his lackeys. Hazel feels immense relief and gratitude, finally able to prep her escape with peace of mind. Annie slams the table firmly, stating one core condition must be made clear before diving into details. Hazel gets nervous, fearing Annie might be getting cold feet again. Annie demands avoiding any face-to-face contact or run-ins with Kalis as much as possible, explaining her anxiety stems from not being able to act natural around him without accidentally spilling secrets, making Hazel realize just how much fear he strikes into everyone. Annie flawlessly plays the part of a visiting friend on vacation, touring around Ferrarium with Hazel. Kalis buys it without suspicion, gently telling Hazel to have a blast with her friend. Ginger helps cover for them, keeping Veronica's watchful eyes away and letting them build their escape plan step by step. Annie advises creating some distance and gradually pulling away from her husband to make tracking her that much harder. Hazel decides to use the upcoming guild gathering in the capital as the perfect excuse to create distance. Kalis watches the situation, puzzled by how increasingly busy she's been lately, noting that she spends almost all her time prepping for business expansion ever since her friend came over. This hustle meant they stopped leaving work together, with her constantly coming home to the mansion super late. Kalis feels irritated and salty over her growing distance, even though he previously thought her being busy would get him off the hook from pampering her. Standing there in a foul mood, scoffing at his conflicting feelings, he coldly wonders if he should just eliminate her right now and get it over with. Sid asks Duke Kalis why he doesn't just get rid of Hazel right away if she gets on his nerves this much. Kalis turns to him with an incredulous look, so the subordinate asks if he's upset because of the captive and why he doesn't just finish her off now. Kalis replies that he's just not in the mood right now, while the subordinate thinks about how many times he's heard that exact excuse. He senses that a whole year has passed and things have completely derailed from their original master plan. He remembers that Kalis shows zero mercy to traitors, usually getting his own hands dirty without dragging things out like this. The subordinate wonders in shock if his master has actually started feeling pity and sympathy for the captive. Kalis furiously scoffs at the mere idea of feeling pity for her. He makes it clear to his lackey that it makes no sense, since she's the one who stole his money and classified intel, adding that the sheer amount of money and effort spent punishing her vastly outweighs what she stole, causing an even bigger loss. Pointing out that gifting her a necklace with permanent protection magic that money can't even buy makes it seem like he pities a worthless existence like a speck of dust. Kalis ponders the idea of pity, finding that it might partly explain his feelings even if it's not entirely accurate. Recalling how weird, unexplainable feelings wash over him at dawn whenever he sees her tiny frame sound asleep, convincing himself that calling those feelings empathy actually sounds pretty plausible. But he suddenly turns to his lackey, taking offense at him calling her a worthless existence like dust. He sharply chews him out, asking why Hazel should ever have to hear words like that and questioning if she's his captive or something. The subordinate hastily bows and apologizes for his slip of the tongue, so Kalis orders him to know his place before bringing up getting rid of her. Kalis insists he's only keeping her around because there's no reason to cause a hassle and that he'll deal with her when the time is right, while the subordinate secretly thinks the world will end before he ever actually does it. Back at the guild, Hazel is caught off guard seeing Noah dressed in unusually sleek, high-end clothes. He smiles, telling her he wanted to look handsome just for her and invites her into the carriage. He urges her to head home and get some rest, but she's shocked when the carriage takes a totally different route from their house. She anxiously asks where they're going, so he asks with a grin if she's curious. She panics, thinking he found out about her escape plan, but he playfully makes a deal, asking for a kiss first before revealing their destination. Internally, she scoffs at him asking for a kiss when he's probably about to dispose of her and bury her alive. Figuring from his playful mood that he doesn't plan on killing her right now, she decides to play along and plants a kiss on his cheek. She asks him again, and he points out that expanding her business means upgrading the headquarters first. She asks if he's actually being serious about work. He presents her with a brand new building as a second gift for their first wedding anniversary. Explaining that the rain-damaged road held up repairs and delayed presenting the building alongside the necklace. He apologizes for the delay, assuring her of his genuine desire to gift her this luxury building, leaving her wondering in utter disbelief if all of this is really for her. Hazel is baffled why he's showering her with lavish gifts if he intends to eliminate her, wondering if he thinks this is how to win her heart. Noah explains that the new location is much safer and features a dedicated lounge for mercenaries to handle any emergency. Hazel realizes he wasn't preparing a burial plot for her, but a legit guild base, breathing a huge sigh of relief that she dodged death today. She flashes him a warm smile, expressing her massive thanks, gratitude, and relief. Noah laments not handing it over on their actual anniversary day to prove how perfectly in sync their minds are. Hazel feels a bit guilty about her earlier suspicions, mentioning that what she gave him was just a modest villa. Noah reassures her that size doesn't matter as long as it's proof of his wife's love for him. Hazel hides her gaze behind her coat, swearing to herself not to get played by his sweet talk again. She tells him she forgot to mention something important, so he playfully asks if it's a confession of her love. She laughs, calling that a given, and he beams with joy hearing exactly what he wanted. She informs him that she has to head out to the capital soon, leaving him behind on his own. Secretly resolving to use this trip as her golden chance to slip away and escape his grip step by step. Hazel sits in the drawing room wondering why he's so obsessed with getting her portrait painted out of nowhere. Noah whines that her being gone for a whole week will shave years off his life if he can't see her face, making her laugh with an apology. She recalls how a little spat broke out right after she got the gift because she wanted to attend the annual guild summit. Remembering how he put on a tearful act, pouting over her being gone for 15 days and begging to come along. She turned him down so he wouldn't block her escape route, compromising by cutting the trip down to just 1 week. He made her swear not to stay past that week, and while she promised, she secretly planned on never coming back for the rest of her life. Watching the painters, she marvels at his insane dedication to playing the loyal, doting husband. And secretly prays he won't turn these exact portraits into wanted posters to hunt her down after she escapes. Kalis broods over how tough it'll be having her gone for a week and his inability to stop her. Remembering her excuse that seeing the new HQ hyped her up to attend the guild summit she used to slack on. Pointing out the summit was a prime chance to score backing and expand the guild. And her desire to take care of the guilds they built together. Kalis convinces himself that putting some distance between them might be good to shut down his subordinates' hints about his feelings for her. Kalis marches up to the painter, sharply cutting him off to ask what on earth he's doing. Hazel panics, wondering if his terrifying true nature is finally slipping out. Kalis critiques the painting, nitpicking that her eyelashes are a millimeter too short and demanding pure perfection so he can admire her while she's away. Hazel is left dumbfounded by his extreme over-the-top obsession over the tiniest details. The painter demands 10 times the price for touch-ups, sarcastically asking if he should measure her fingernails next. The portrait is finally finished after insane scrutiny and hung proudly in Kalis's office. Hazel stands with Nika as luggage is packed for the trip to the capital. She reminds Nika of her assigned task, and Nika confirms she'll handle it the second the packing is done. Nika lets her know she'll arrive in the capital a few hours later, giving Hazel a head start away from her watchful eyes. All while plotting to prevent any direct run-in between Annie and Kalis. Noah pulls his wife into a farewell hug, reminding her to reach out via the communication crystal if she needs anything. She reassures him that she grew up in the capital and knows it like the back of her hand. Noah suddenly kisses her right in front of everyone, passionately demanding she say those 3 little words. He persistently begs her to say she loves him. Hazel gives in, telling him she loves him. Right at that moment, Kalis catches a weird shift in the affectionate look in her eyes. He gets deeply irritated with zero logical reason to explain the gut-wrenching feeling. His mood turns completely sour as the little details he used to ignore start driving him crazy. He grips her tight, determined to figure out why she changed, playing it off like he just feels weird about being apart for so long. She promises to call the second she arrives, and he asks her not to get annoyed if he spams her with calls. He reassures himself that her feelings couldn't have changed and he's just stressing over nothing. Yet deep down, he resolves to keep a sharp eye out to see if any man dares get close to her. Meanwhile, in the capital, Dylan Banker stands groaning under a mountain of trouble, wondering where to find a skilled illusion mage to lend a hand. Dylan Banker stands there wishing Hazel Love was around to save the day in rough times like this. The carriage rolls into the capital as Hazel takes in the sights after a full year away. Seeing the glowing mana orbs shining like moons atop the central tower, an overwhelming urge hits her to make a break for it right then and there. She knows crossing the border right away might work, but pulls back knowing she'd get tracked down and caught instantly if she acts recklessly. She arrives at the hotel and asks the maid to unpack her bags, explaining she's heading to the Guild Association to check in and grab dinner with her friend. The maid offers to prepare snacks and wishes her safe travels as Hazel heads out on her own. Hazel feels the bizarre sensation of traveling and being away from Noah for the first time after spending over a year together. An eerie sense of emptiness and loneliness creeps in, but she tells herself she has to get used to the distance ahead of her final escape. Hazel arrives at the Guild Association headquarters, determined to stand strong and get her mission done. She steps up to the receptionist, introducing herself as the Guild Master of the Horn Guild to check in, and is told to wait in the lounge. She heads to the lounge, puzzled by the unusual delay in processing her paperwork. She decides to kick back and shake off the exhaustion of her long journey to the capital. Opening the door, she freezes seeing her former squad mate Dylan Banker casually sipping tea, both locking eyes in utter shock. She incredulously asks what he's doing here, clarifying she's here as a guild master. Dylan explains he came to request cooperation from the Guild Association, sharply scolding her for not letting him know she was coming. She bluntly tells him she never planned on seeing him in the first place, leaving him offended by her ingratitude after all the help he gave her. Hazel gets flustered with a slight twinge of guilt as Dylan reminds her he sent Annie to help her and that it's been a year and a half since they last met. Hazel realizes how deep the bond between him and the original Hazel was, making his hurt and nagging totally understandable. She defends herself, saying she wanted to catch her breath before messaging him, but he keeps scolding her for ghosting him for so long. The story flashes back to their early days at the academy and how brutal graduating was, forging an unbreakable bond of loyalty among classmates. During their monster hunting graduation exam, high-tier beasts launched a surprise ambush. Hazel saved the day back then by unleashing her master-tier illusion magic right in the middle of chaos. Ever since, Dylan dubbed her 1 against 100, a past that predates our female lid reincarnating into this body. The scene flashes back to the day of her resignation, when Dylan was surprised to see her in full uniform on her day off. Hazel handed him her official letter of resignation from the Night Order. Dylan was stunned, asking in disbelief if she was pulling his leg. She confirmed she was dead serious, wanting to hang up her sword and finally get some rest. Dylan protested hard, reminding her of her former drive to become Knight Commander no matter what it took. She justified quitting by explaining it was impossible to take the role under the Crown Prince as a mere commoner. Clenching his fist in anger, Dylan insisted he was ready to crush anyone who looked down on her background to fix the problem. She thanked him for his support, stating that her choice to leave was final and well thought out. Reassuring him that her life wouldn't end with resignation, she promised to visit and stay in touch. Back in the present, Dylan bitterly calls her out for vanishing and not visiting for a whole year, so she apologizes, blaming a mountain of circumstances. Hazel feels internally drained from surviving way too many horrors and hardships beyond her limits. Dylan asks for a specific favor if she's genuinely sorry. Explaining his desperate need for a legendary illusionist of her caliber, insisting she's the only one who can pull it off. She cautiously asks what kind of mission he's buttering her up for. Dylan reveals he wants her to train and mentor a rookie illusionist. She asks if it's an academy student, but he clarifies it's a new recruit who joined the Night Order. Dylan explains the recruit has a tricky problem. She's an illusionist who literally can't cast illusion magic. Hazel scoffs at the contradiction, comparing it to saying the royal head chef can't boil water. She roasts the Crown Prince's White Dragon Knight's admission standards, questioning how on earth she passed the entrance exam. Dylan awkwardly tries to explain that she genuinely has the talent and capacity, but just can't cast it normally. He desperately begs her to just take one quick look at the rookie. Promising to owe her for life, Hazel sees right through his guilt-tripping tactics. She firmly shuts him down, taking his desperation as proof of how messy the job is, while he insists they can't manage without an illusionist after being spoiled by her elite skills. Dylan switches to a dead serious tone, revealing the real reason he came to the Guild Association. Explaining that rising monster attacks force the Knights to mandate monthly monster samples from every single guild. He offers to grant her guild a total exemption from this mandatory quota in exchange for her. Hazel thinks it doesn't matter to her since she's ditching the guild and running away anyway. But she pictures Kaelus's reaction when running the guild and hunting monster quotas every month falls squarely on his shoulders. Picturing his explosive rage at being stuck doing dirty manual labor after she flees. She shivers thinking he'd hunt her to the depths of hell for revenge, knowing pissing him off is a guaranteed death sentence. She folds and reluctantly agrees to see the recruit just to get rid of this headache fast. Dylan drops to his knees in pure joy, thanking her and promising it'll only take a couple of hours. She tells him to get up immediately since she already said yes. She catches the weirded out, pitying stares from onlookers watching Dylan beg on the floor. Recalling that mercenaries used to call him Mad Dog because of his wild antics. That evening, Hazel meets up with Annie for dinner, and Annie laughs hysterically at the visual of Dylan begging like that. Wishing she was there to see it in person, she reassures Hazel that Kaelus hasn't set foot in the capital. Annie asks to be notified of any changes to her schedule to adjust the plan accordingly. Pouring the wine, she suggests toasting to wrapping up today's tasks safely and gearing up for tomorrow. Hazel thanks her, letting her know she can drop by the Wilson Hotel if any emergency pops up. Recalling how she had to stay at the Wilson Hotel because Kaelus insisted on it, serving as a decoy so Annie could move freely. Annie mentions that the top floor of the hotel was modeled after the Imperial Palace Suites, which explains the insane price tag. Hazel resolves to thoroughly inspect the room during her stay before ditching the capital. Annie chatters on about funny moments from her day while Hazel laughs along. Yet deep in her heart, a massive void opens up that fake smiles and laughter can't fill whenever Noah crosses her mind. Staring into her glass, she sadly wonders how she'll ever fill this painful emptiness once they go their separate ways. She heads back to her luxury suite at the hotel to find her assistant Veronica waiting for her. She asks when she arrived and Veronica claims she just got. Hazel cleverly catches her in the lie, pointing out she'd clearly been waiting for hours without food because of her workaholic nature. Veronica flusters and Hazel orders her to go grab dinner and rest immediately, promising she'll stay put in the room. Hazel collapses onto the bed in her clothes, wondering if the bed has always felt this huge and lonely. The maid steps in, asking her to sit up so she can help her change for bed. Hazel looks toward the communication crystal and decides against calling Noah, refusing to show weakness that might wreck her plan. She convinces herself he'll understand she fell asleep, and that he's probably relieved he doesn't have to put on the Mr. Nice Guy mask with her gone. On the flip side, Kaelus sits in the pitch-black room impatiently tapping his fingers beside the crystal, wondering why on earth she hasn't called yet. He stands staring at her portrait on the wall, questioning why she went silent despite promising to call the moment she arrived. Looking out the window, he figures she must be exhausted from roaming the massive capital on her tiny feet, making excuses for why she crashed into deep sleep. Noah reassures himself that Hazel would never forget him, reasoning she must just be completely wiped out. Staring at her framed portrait, he realizes the painting doesn't even capture a fraction of her true beauty. A deep thirst and craving overcomes him that no amount of water could ever quench. Standing alone by the window, he wonders if the nights have always dragged on this long, feeling the cold sting of loneliness. He heads back to his desk to keep working, but his familiar headache strikes with a vengeance. He buries himself in documents until morning light sneaks up on him without realizing time had passed. His assistant walks in, stunned to see him grinding away so early in yesterday's clothes. The assistant gasps, asking if he pulled an all-nighter, so Noah coldly tells him to shut up and bring today's files. The assistant feels a chilling, dark aura oozing from his master whenever his mood sours, to the point his vision blurs and a burning stench fills the air. Noah sharply chews him out for the piling workload and the sloppy handling of issues flagged in the reports. Threateningly asking if they think he'd just overlook such slack, terrifying his assistant to his core. Right at that moment, the magical communication crystal begins glowing on the desk. The second he hears Hazel calling his name, his fury instantly evaporates, switching to a warm smile and a completely lovesick look. The assistant stands there frozen in pure shock and horror at the instant 180 in his master's tone and behavior. Hazel pops up on the crystal, apologizing for passing out early from exhaustion, and asks if he was waiting up for her. Noah playfully pouts, claiming the night dragged on forever because his wife broke her promise. Telling her he'd feel way better if she admits she missed him, while Hazel sees right through his classic tricks. She decides to humor him, confessing she missed her beloved husband. Noah happily asks how her work is going, and she tells him about visiting the Guild Association. He reminds her about attending the Guild's summit scheduled for today, revealing that he prepared a special surprise delivery just for her, sending over high-end designer outfits for her to choose from so the other Guild leaders won't look down on her. Hazel's assistant walks in carrying the luxury gowns and jewelry sent by Noah. The assistant gushes over how attentive and madly in love Noah is, and Hazel manages a tight, nervous smile. Hazel thanks Noah, telling him to take care of himself and eat well before wrapping up the call. Noah reassures her that he'll always be fine as long as she keeps him in her thoughts. She hangs up, letting out a heavy sigh of both relief and exhaustion, secretly admitting she barely slept a wink, tossing and turning until dawn. Realizing her insomnia is all because one specific person wasn't by her side, she forces herself to pull it together. Hazel reassures her assistant she's fine and just wants to take a quick walk to shake off the grogginess. The young maid rushes in with excitement, bringing the dresses and accessories to style her. Hazel kindly tells her not to rush, thanking her for working hard since morning. The maid expresses sheer happiness to be of help to her. Hazel reflects on how this maid, Alice, has served her for so long without Hazel knowing anything about her besides her name. Feeling strange about how her past love blindness completely blocked her from noticing the people around her, she decides to shelf all regrets and confusion to laser focus on her current plan. Hazel heads out into the city streets dressed in her field gear. She arrives at the temple where a priest greets her, asking the reason for her visit. She smiles, telling him she's here to pray, remembering that illusion magic is classified as a branch of dark magic, and that a holy temple packed with divine power is the natural enemy of a mage like her. Yet she had no choice but to come to secure an insurance policy and lifeline for her survival. The priest's face lights up, asking if she's looking to become a regular temple patron. She confirms it and inquires about the perks that come with sponsorship. The priest lists perks like engraving her name in the central plaza, getting a private prayer room, and receiving the high priest's blessing. He hypes up donation methods and paperwork like an overeager salesman. Hazel cuts him off, asking specifically about security and personal protection perks. The priest asks if she's under any threat and she denies it, saying it's just precautionary measures. The priest explains that patrons have the right to stay in the temple anytime under divine protection, emphasizing that not even the emperor can interfere in temple affairs, giving her absolute sanctuary, the exact answer she was fishing for. She recalls that this was the exact method the female lead, Lily, used to shield Ginger after betraying Kalis in the original plot. She knows living as a nun with fasting, brutal prayers, and rough robes would be double torture for a dark mage. So plan A is definitely to run away and live freely, using temple sanctuary only as a dead-end emergency failsafe against Kalis. The priest hands her a sacred brooch that grants immediate sanctuary at any temple on site. Hazel thanks him, relieved to have locked down a solid backup plan. The scene shifts to a lavish banquet hall where guild masters gather to the rhythm of music. Guests whisper in curiosity about the Horn Guild master attending for the very first time. Hazel walks in stunning and majestic, accompanied by her secretary Nika. Nika gets nervous from the sheer intimidating aura radiating from the veteran guild leaders standing around, pointing out that everyone here looks like seasoned knights and master swordsmen. Hazel jokingly asks if she looks like the weakest link in the room. Nika passionately insists her guild master is just as imposing and powerful as anyone present. One of the leaders approaches, praising the secretary's loyalty and welcoming Hazel to the summit, introducing himself as Ram, representative of the northern branch. Shaking her hand, he asks if she's ever visited the Sergil region. Hazel instantly clocks that Sergil is the most dangerous hotspot in the novel where the demon lord seal shatters, and he regains his power. She immediately crosses this death trap right off her getaway list, reminding herself that her whole goal here is gathering intel to pick a safe sanctuary. She expresses sympathy over the monster surge in the north, acknowledging how tough things must be, politely offering her help if she ever visits the north, earning his thanks for her kindness. Ted, representative of the southern branch, cuts in, introducing his wife Lena. Ted notes their region is also getting battered by monster raids, actively scouting for a guild to back them up. Hemis from the Castalt region joins the circle, mentioning his guild just launched 6 months ago. Ted asks how things are holding up in Castalt during this crazy rush. Hemis replies they have 0 monsters, but their workload is insane because crowds of people are flooding in from everywhere. That grabs Hazel's attention, realizing an influx of strangers means blending in without drawing any eyes. Thinking of the classic hide a tree in a forest trick, she sees Castalt as the ultimate hiding spot from Kalis. Hazel mentally locks in Castalt as her top escape destination. Hemis turns to her asking which region she hails from. Hazel introduces herself to the crowd as being from Ferrarium, leaving the nobles buzzing with curious questions about the town. One noble recalls a famous guild operating there, asking if she means the Horn Guild. He explains everyone was hyped to see the Horn Guild Master making their first summit debut, as Hazel starts putting 2 and 2 together. Connecting the dots, everyone gasps in shock, realizing the young woman standing right in front of them is the renowned guild master herself. The crowd is stunned that the Horn Guild Master is such a young girl, curiously asking about her age. Hazel answers that she's 25, blowing everyone away with the fact that she's the youngest guild master in history, showering her with praise. The nobles praise how she propelled her guild to top rankings right from the jump despite monsters being super rare there, while Hazel wonders if her achievements were really that impressive. Hazel recalls her past life of constant scolding and disdain for being a commoner, having lived believing she'd never amount to anything. Emotion washes over her, having never imagined a day would come where everyone acknowledged her talents like this. Hazel reminds herself she's resolved to leave everything behind and run, strictly warning herself not to hold any regrets. She feels confident that she can stand on her own 2 feet and thrive wherever she goes now that her skills are validated. Reassured that she can survive and crush it totally on her own without ever needing Noah by her side. The nobles politely suggest staying in touch and keeping the connection alive after this introduction. Hazel gladly agrees, looking forward to working and teaming up with them in the future. Hazel sits with young Dylan Banker, who tells her to order whatever she wants on his tab since he's the one asking for a favor. He grumbles about her calling him young Marquis, so Hazel snaps back asking why he's dumping such an annoying task on her. He tells her to stop nagging and pick a dessert, so Hazel simply orders a single slice of cake. Dylan catches her off guard by ordering the entire dessert menu in one shot, making Hazel call him out for asking her first when he was going to buy everything anyway. The secretary glares at the scene, furious at Dylan acting way too chummy with Hazel. Reminding herself that while Hazel is sweet and gorgeous, she's still the wife of her master, Lord Kalis. Fuming inside, she vows not to let it slide if Dylan makes a move on her, while Dylan asks Hazel how the guild's summit went. She tells him the meeting was actually pretty great and fun, contrary to what she expected. Explaining she braced for arrogant attitudes, but everyone was surprisingly friendly, bringing Dylan relief as the desserts arrive. Dylan compliments Hazel on being amazing, taking her by surprise and making her ask what brought on the sudden praise. He admits that when she resigned and moved to the countryside, he thought she'd crawl right back in no time. Expressing his shock at how she struck gold within a single year and settled down despite never leaving Elkhart before. He brings up her sudden marriage without telling a soul, smiling as he asks when she'll finally introduce her husband. Teasing her about keeping him hidden, Hazel panics and makes up an excuse that her husband is super busy. Dylan gets even more curious about his identity and why he's so busy. While she freaks out knowing if the knights catch wind of it, her escape plan goes up in smoke. The secretary firmly steps in, cutting off the conversation and demanding they stop gossiping about her master's husband and head to Knight HQ immediately. The secretary sharply states with a stern glare that their guild master is a very busy person. Dylan laughs and apologizes to the secretary, then leans in to wipe Hazel's mouth with a napkin. Dylan hands the napkin to Hazel as the secretary gets even more furious, resolving to watch his every move like a hawk all day. The squad arrives at the Crown Prince's White Dragon Knight headquarters as old memories flood back to Hazel. Noticing the place hasn't changed a bit, Dylan asks if nostalgia is hitting her and she confirms it. She remembers just how brutally difficult handing in her resignation was back then. Dylan warns her in advance that things won't be a walk in the park this time either, and she replies that she knows all too well. They knock and step inside to meet and greet the Crown Prince. Hazel flashes back to the moment she handed in her resignation letter, asking to leave the Knights and wrap up her handover. Remembering how the Crown Prince incinerated her resignation letter with his magic aura, strictly commanding her to cut the nonsense and get back to work.